Disclaimer: the following documentary contains personal accounts and stories about alleged paranormal experiences and historical events, including mentions of suicide. The views and opinions expressed in the documentary are those of the individuals interviewed and do not necessarily reflect those of the filmmakers. The content is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Was actually going down into the basement of that house, because of course you're looking at a house, you're going to check everything up, attic to basement. And the basement, I could not stand being in the basement. I'm actually getting like goosebumps even thinking about it.
My father died in 1983 when I was 18. And that's really when I started having, seeing ghosts, so to speak, seeing a ghost.
Ghosts and poltergeists are the things of legend, literature, and history. Many people worldwide have experienced supernatural phenomena through literature, history, and direct experience. As defined from a 1913 dictionary, a ghost is a paranormal manifestation or event that includes a dead person's disembodied soul or spirit, an apparition, or a specter. But how does a ghost differ from a poltergeist? The word poltergeist originates in German and can be translated roughly as a noisy ghost or a chain rattler.
My name is Liza Shepard. I am currently a nurse. I've been a nurse for the last 30 years. My father died in 1983 when I was 18. And that's really when I started having, seeing ghosts, so to speak, seeing a ghost. And sometimes I see, I've only seen him, live 2 or 3 times, and a lot of times it just comes up in your dreams. But the information is very accurate, so you can't deny it. And then a few other things have happened, and I don't know if once you become open to something, you're open to other things. As a kid, when I would go sit in the woods for hours and hours, every once in a while I'd see like little green orbs and things like that. So I guess, I had a grandmother who was she was from Ireland, and for any better explanation, I'm not sure. She read tea leaves and all sorts of interesting things. She was a great grandmother, actually. And I don't know if this is just something that gets passed down from generation to generation. I seem to be the only one of the siblings that has this.
Some of the earliest references to ghosts have been found in history and literature dating back to the ancient Sumerians, the tale of Gilgamesh, dating to 2150 BCE.
I'm Evan. I'm one of the co-founders of Green Mountain Ghost Society. We're a group of paranormal investigators. I grew up in Vermont, and I was always into Halloween, scary movies. And anytime we were watching TV, if something came on with like real-life ghost-type stories, it always piqued my interest.
Tablets in a British museum may well indicate that the notion of ghosts go back even further than the ancient Sumerians.
I'm Victoria Ainsworth. I was a ballet dancer. I danced in Montreal, New York, Havana, Vienna, Frankfurt, Stuttgart, Cologne. A few other cities. I encountered more ghosts in Manhattan than all of Switzerland, France, Austria, and Germany.
So my name's Jarrod Sammis. Like Evan, I'm from the Vermont region. I was born in Vermont. I actually grew up in upstate New York in the Ticonderoga area. I'd say one thing that got me particularly interested in the subject is that my family is quite interested in history. My oldest brother was actually a history teacher at one point. My family actually was around when a lot of that history was made. So my family is actually certified Sons of the American Revolution on both my father and mother's side. So a lot of the places that we look at that we have an interest in, such as example, the Hubbard Battlefield, my direct ancestor, James Lamb, was actually part of that Saratoga campaign. So, and in addition to that, he was also around during the French and Indian War.
My name is Mean Dean. I'm the co-founder of the Green Mountain Ghost Society, along with my friend Evan. We have been doing paranormal-based research over the course of the last year, primarily in New York and Vermont State. And I started to get into the paranormal side of things and became interested in the paranormal probably toward the end of high school and throughout college and beyond. I found it fascinating. I actually grew up in a town in New York. The home was actually built somewhere in the 1800s. There was a cannon in the backyard. This cannon appeared to be functional at one point, and I could tell all the years that I had lived at this house, I had strange feelings at certain points, mostly inside of the house. I lived on the second floor in a bedroom, and at various night, I would hear creaking, which is not too uncommon for a house built in that era. But I could also feel almost like a presence, and I knew that at that time of night, my parents would have been asleep. And I felt almost like awoken, but it seemed like a dream. And so I felt like there was a good amount of pressure on my chest. And I felt it was all of a sudden it just happened. And I didn't know what to think about it. I didn't know how to explain it. But I feel like this was for one, it was a scary experience. But at the same time, it led me wanting to learn more about the paranormal. And so eventually, I moved from that house, and I've been living in Vermont for about 13 years.
20% of people in the U.S. reported having an experience involving a ghost. Our informal poll on social media indicates that 64% of respondents have indicated having a direct experience involving a ghost.
I think one of my first experiences was the night my father died, and I woke up and saw him sitting in the recliner and talked to him. And I was awake during that time. That was very surreal. You know, always when you wake up in the morning, you're always going, oh, that didn't really happen. But then it happens again. You know, I remember being in college and waking up and looking across the loft at my roommate Dina and saying, Grandma. And I went down and went into the bathroom. And when I came back, 15, 20 minutes later, she was holding the phone and said, oh, Liza, I'm so sorry your grandmother died. And he had come and sat on my bed in the loft and told me that Grandma had passed. so many experiences with my father. Another really good one was after I had my daughter, I was taking a nap, and you know what it's like with a little kid and a toddler. They're so busy, they nap, you nap, you know? Plus I was working full time as a nurse and doing call and everything else, and it's a very physical job. So I was like out like a light. And all of a sudden it was like, wake up, Liza, wake up. And I was like, I thought it was my husband. I was like, oh, go away, can't you see I'm trying to sleep? And I opened my eyes to look at him to tell him to go away again. And the whole image just completely dissolved in front of me. It was like pixels that dissolved. And the last thing that I remembered was the tan, like golf coat he was wearing. And I said, oh, this is really weird. When I wake up, I'm gonna think about this. I closed my eyes again, and probably within 15 minutes, my daughter fell off the bed and hit her head. So I was like, oh, it was telling me to wake up, and obviously I didn't listen. But I went to my sister later, and I said, did Dad have a tan, kind of like a golf type coat that he used to wear? And she says, oh yeah, he wore that thing all the time. And it was like a beige color, and I was like, it had a zipper? She goes, yeah. I was like, okay, all right.
Shakespeare presents us with ghosts in 5 of his plays related to the ghost of a murdered person returning to haunt the living. Many of these are based on Scottish and possibly Irish folklore.
Put this team together until about a year ago when we did our first investigation. Was actually in October of 2023. There was a group of 3 of us, myself, Dean, and Jarrod. We went to the Hubbard battlefield in Vermont, and that's where we did our first ever investigation. As a kid, or even leading up to when we started the team, I never had. I just always enjoyed watching those stories on TV or reading about them in books. It's one of those things where I've just always wanted to find out for myself. And then I remember our inaugural investigation, or our first investigation, the one at the Hubbard battlefield. So while we were doing our investigation of the Hubbard battlefield, we were on a hill on the back end, and that was where the British initially charged up. And I'd say the biggest part of the battle was right about there on that hill. And we got this strange, we could smell smoke, almost like gunpowder, and we had no idea where it was coming from.
Throughout history, objects have been regarded as mediums by which spirits can enter into the realm of the living. These objects hold particular fascination for those who study the paranormal.
My mother bought me a lovely red Cadillac. She got it at a very reasonable price, as the previous owner had shot himself in it. My sister said when she first saw the car, she could feel there was a presence in the front seat, but quite deliberately, she did not tell me. She wanted to see if I knew. The first time I drove the car, I felt a heaviness on my chest, and I heard a voice say, I went out with a bang. The previous owner turned out to be a lovely young man who had a heartbreak, and he killed himself. He later told me it wasn't worth it. He could manipulate the lights and the seats and the windows. Originally, he drank cheap coffee. We could smell it when he got in the car. And after following my daughter and her fancy coffee habits, he would change to an exotic, extravagant, nice-smelling coffee. He would smoke and leave cigarette butts in the car. The odd time, he turned into a child again, and I would feel his arms around my waist as if I was his mother. He was extremely protective of my daughter. One evening, we were sitting in the car, and she was crying, and the ghost was making the seats go back and forth and the windows go up and down.
for me, not just a matter of having an interest in just, okay, it's ghosts or whatnot. To me, it's also seeing the history and the lives of people that have come before us, and a chance to look back into the past to have that glimpse of how things were different. And I think the other thing too, aside from that aspect, is just the connection. So one thing that you have these different generations that came before us, that we're taking levels of trying to reach out and see people that have been there before. And I think that's ultimately the important thing. That, I mean, anybody that does this type of work, whether it's someone's a professional ghost hunter or someone's a hobbyist or someone just has an interest in the topic, I think it's just that connection and realizing that we are connected to our past. Even if we can't necessarily see it, we still have that connection. In terms of ghost hunting, I've always had, I would describe it as a feeling with things in older places. And it's one of those things, as people have described, as like, okay, you feel like you're being watched. That's one thing. For me, it's always been, you go to a place that just feels different, a place that's been around longer. And the only way I could describe it is like, let's say you have two pairs of shoes. You have your brand new pair of shoes, and then you have the shoes that you've worn for 2 years. And they may be the exact same shoe, you put your foot into it, and even though they're the same exact shoe, there's something that feels different in that spot. So I would say that one of the big things for me that drew an interest, especially growing up in the Ticonderoga region, was visiting a lot of the battlefields. And there's places where you would go that you wouldn't necessarily know what happened there, but you could feel a weight. And it was almost like you are dressed as you are, and then someone puts a heavy leather jacket on. And you're not necessarily having anything different going on, but you can definitely tell something's there. So I think the thing that really got me into it was seeing places like that, understanding places like that in terms of the historical significance. A lot of times I would do it after the fact, not realizing, okay, something significant did happen in this particular spot. And it's actually that type of feeling, that type of, I don't want to say intuition because I feel like intuition's an overused word, but that type of feeling and presence in places, it's actually something that turns out my mother has the exact same thing, and I didn't realize it until I got older.
Native American tribes generally view ghosts or spirits of the dead as a part of the natural world, often with the potential to be both helpful and harmful, depending on how they are treated and the individual's actions.
They had just built a mobile home park in that area. And we said, okay, we're just going to rent here for a while. We're just going to come here and rent for a while. I have no other explanation other than, I mean, ghostly, but was it a good entity? I'll never know because I won't go through the full research of figuring out what actually happened there. We had a big red chow, and I had my gray cat, my smoky gray cat, and he went overseas, and it was just me. Well, I didn't know much about the area other than we were behind a dog kennel. You know, the owners of this place had a dog kennel. And one night I was just kind of, you know, this is not the days of cell phones where you could go sleep anywhere. You had to be wherever your phone was. And I was sleeping on the couch because I was waiting for my husband to call me from Japan. And it's like I fell off to sleep, and all I could feel was somebody reaching for my shoulder, and that was it. I was gone. I can't tell you what happened during that time. I can only tell you when I woke up, I was crying. I mean, I had tears coming out of I was just bawling. And my cat, my gray cat, was sitting directly on my chest, like right over where my heart was. And his eyes were like big saucers. I was like, oh, come on now, get off my chest, you know? I was like, oh, that was so freaky. What a scary, you know, dream or nightmare I was having. And I got up, and I was like, well, that's it for tonight. I'm going to bed. And I looked around, and all the windowsills had been torn off. The door frame had been torn off. The blinds had been pulled down. This was by the dog. This is by the dog, and every single room had carnage. The blinds, the curtains, everything. And I was like, now come on, I would have woken up during this. This is a lot of damage. You know, and he was like clinging to me like both animals were following you really close and they wouldn't let you out of sight. And I was like, I would have woken up to this. This is a lot of damage. What the world? I mean, pulling windowsills off. I mean, big segments of the door sill. I mean, just ripped off, like he grabbed it with his mouth and ripped them off. The dog had gone around and done all the damage. And, you know, urinated on the floors, pulled down blinds, pulled down curtains, all that kind of stuff. And every single room I went into, there was damage. But I didn't, quote unquote, wake up through any of this. And the cat was sitting on my chest. And when I talked to a person who was an Abenaki pipe carrier, a spiritualist, what they said was, you know, it was absolutely terrifying. I have to tell you that. It was terrifying. She said the cat was sitting on my chest, so no other entity could enter my body. I said, are you serious? And she said, oh, absolutely. He was protecting your solar plexus and your chakra to make sure, she said, and the dog was chasing whatever it was that had taken you.
Actually, an interesting situation that we had recently, one of our more recent videos, was when we went to the now defunct town of West Castleton. And Evan has actually done many investigations back there where we just cast survey, ask questions, whatnot. So I actually went with Evan recently. And we actually, sometimes, especially when we're dealing with situations that might involve the spirit of someone that's either a soldier or somebody that worked in a factory or whatnot, what's one thing that everybody would love after a long day's work? A good beer. So we go out there and we actually got in contact with what we believe was a factory worker. And there's a very friendly experience. You know, we go there, they have a beer, EMF spike goes off after asking questions, and we actually asked, you know, were you the Irish immigrant? Did you work in this factory here? And it was quite a good experience. And when the time was up, as with all good friends, you know, you just say, hey, you know what? You want us to leave? And I was like, yep, time for you to go. It's like, all right. So not that was actually said like that per se, but, you know, it's one of those nice things, especially with an EMF reading, is that you can, in the right situations, get what appears to be a response. So in terms of what we like to do is that sometimes we have these items called trigger objects. So for example, when we went to the Battle of Hubbardton, I actually have a musket ball that was recovered from the site, and it was certified and whatnot. So it was actually an actual trigger object. So one thing that we did as actually two things we did as a trigger object in regards to West Castleton was that we had the beer, but we also had hard candies. And somebody shows up with beer and candy, I mean, that's a great day, you know? So that's one of those things that we were just asking her questions, and we actually were able to decipher by means of the interactions with the EMF meter which type of candy get preferred. And I thought it was incredibly fascinating. And we actually did the same thing when we were at the sanitarium. We brought toys, we brought candy, and with those you can actually, if you ask the right questions, you can actually get separate reactions to show which is preferred, and if it's actually preferred, you would get a continual reaction. So to me, that was interesting. In terms of emotion, it really depends on the spot. So some places you'll get that sense of curiosity, but in some places you'll feel a heavy weight. You will feel that something happened there that was not good.
The cannon was in the backyard. Like I said, the house was probably at least 200, 250 years old. And it was set at the way back of the house. There was a bank and a stream just off of our property. And so the way that it was pointed was actually turned toward the direction of the house. So it's seeming like if soldiers back then were trying to shoot off the cannon, other soldiers trying to approach and attack, coming towards the direction of the house, toward the bank. Spirits can communicate with us, different forms of communication, so that's something that's really fascinated me. Sweeping through radio stations and being put either in FM or AM mode and trying to pick up different sounds and potentially voices. When we were at the haunted house attraction, we came across where there was a stage. It was fully enclosed in the back, but the stage was open out front. And we were doing a spirit box session, but I was holding the night vision camera. And while we were conducting the spirit box session, the camera, it was near full battery when I was recording. And all of a sudden, it went into shutdown mode, and there was some message that came across the screen that said something to the degree of recording forbidden, and it shut down completely. So to get that type of message was alarming. It was scary in that particular moment, but it was definitely one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that I've gotten from going from almost a full battery to the battery completely draining within a short time span, and then getting that message, which I'm not used to seeing across a night vision camera.
So one of the things that, especially when we were investigating the sanitarium, there was a filled-in pool. And the pool, when we went out there, you could walk out there, and of course now it's all overgrown and everything, but the pool was filled in probably 50, 60 years ago. And I actually spoke with somebody who was familiar with the area, because the one thing is that we did, we went around the pool, and it's not one of those things where you catch a ton of evidence in terms of actual equipment, but you just go to a place and let's get that feeling that you get, that leather jacket that you feel weighed down and on your shoulders when you're walking. It turns out when I spoke with somebody that was familiar with the area, oh, yeah, somebody drowned in that pool. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay. That explains why it was probably filled in. So that to me, it's in terms of emotions and reactions, it really can. It's just like with people are happy, people are sad. People are playful, people can be mean, and just because someone's passed away, it doesn't mean that that spectrum of human emotion has completely disappeared.
I took ballet classes in a beautiful studio located behind Carnegie Hall on West 56th Street. The owner of the studio, George, had been knighted by the French government for work in the resistance. He was a remarkable man, artistic and gentle and encouraging. He had a vast collection of antiques, a tunic that Nijinsky had worn, the wedding invitation to Louis XV, an egg that had belonged to the Grand Duchess Anastasia. Not a Fabergé egg, but a beautiful egg. George and his dear friend Adelaide, a ballerina, lived on the second floor. We danced in the studio on the third floor. It had long windows and beautiful plants. Very often, as we danced, we would see a shadow standing in the doorway, watching us, giving us a feeling of appreciation and acceptance. The dressing room was on the second floor. Very often, I would dash in and throw my shoes and my sweater on the floor. When I came back after ballet class, the shoes were unbuckled, sitting neatly beside each other, the sweater picked off the floor. This was not unusual. Many other dancers reported having their clothes neatly folded. Very often in the evening, the dancers would gather in the upstairs studio, and George would regale us with stories of Pavlova. It's just an emotional, beautiful time.
You go into a house, and sometimes you just feel something's there. I actually remember one particular experience several years ago as family members that were looking at a home, and it was actually a newer home built in the past 5-6 decades. You go into the property, as people mentioned, you have that feeling of being seen and whatnot. Okay, that's weird. Let's go inside. You go inside even further, and then you just have this kind of additional weight. You have this feel, like, it's like, the only way I could describe it is like when you know something has happened to somebody, like if you're going to a funeral or whatnot. You know something has happened, you can sense and feel the emotions of other people around you. And you may not necessarily know what happened, but you can feel that emotion that someone's carrying. And that's the only way I could describe that. And that exact house, the thing that really sunk in with me was actually going down into the basement of that house, because of course you're looking at a house, you're gonna check everything up, you know, attic to basement. And the basement, I could not stand being in the basement. I'm actually getting like goosebumps even thinking about it. We actually did not find out until after the fact, and thankfully they chose not to buy the house. It turns out there was actually a suicide in the basement. But in addition to that, where the property was built, it turns out that that property was adjacent to a major medical camp that was used to treat wounded soldiers during the French and Indian War. And it was technically a private property, but you know, I found out after the fact that that did happen on that property. So to me, that was a huge motivating marker, because what better way than not just have a feeling, but also attempt to try and quantify these experiences in terms of scientific data. So I'd say in terms of the actual documented evidence that we have on video, we have a piece of technology called a EMF reader. So when it's in the presence of certain frequencies of electricity, in terms of electromagnetic frequency, I should say, it'll change its colors. So if it has no presence there, you have your baseline, which is just a solid green color. And then as it gets into the higher spectrum of it, it'll actually change color. So you'll go from green to yellowish green to yellow, then yellowish red, and they'll just start going to red. So, and it happens very quickly. Cat bounces back and forth. So one of the theories regarding paranormal is the idea that spirits are an electromagnetic imprint. So that's one of the theories regarding it. And of course, you can have any type of interference and whatnot with it. For example, if you have it near an electromagnet, you could have the chance of an interference. But if you have it by itself, aside from any form of major technology, then it's a bizarre situation. So that's one of the accepted ideas regarding it. So when we actually had our investigation at the haunted house that used to be the sanitarium for children for tuberculosis, we actually had a group experience at one point that happened over the period of time of about half hour, 45 minutes, where we believe that we were reaching out to the spirit of a child. And we're inside at the front door, and we're just asking her questions regarding it, and it just starts going off the charts. I mean, it's one of those things that normally if you have a reading, it might happen for a few seconds. This particular one happened for about 10 to 15 minutes inside. And then we said, okay, well, we spent a lot of time on this, we collected a lot of evidence, let's move outside. And there was a bench right outside on the front porch. So the thing that ended up happening, we actually had multiple electronic devices lose charge. And one of the things that we do during our investigations, we make sure everything is charged. I mean, cross our T's, dot our I's, make sure everything's fully charged before we go. So we had multiple equipment malfunctions, battery drains, and the thing that ended up happening is that we actually took multiple meters and we put them out on this table, and we actually had our partner that does the psychic work out there, and her and I are both out there asking questions, and these separate meters, they both start getting readings, and we're just asking questions, and they're bouncing back and forth, and she actually took a meter, and of course we're both speaking to them as if they're children, and she asked the question, okay, do you want to sit on my lap? If it's a place for children, of course you have a nice lady show up there, it's like, oh, you want to sit in my lap? We'll talk about stories and whatnot. We actually had the meter on her, and the meter started going off. This process of these meters going off kept going on for about 45 minutes, to the point where we actually were drawing time towards the time that we left. And to me, it was phenomenal. To me, it was absolutely phenomenal. So whether someone could say that's actual direct evidence, I mean, that's always subject to interpretation. But whenever you see something that's like, well, that's interesting.
We always felt a wonderful presence from the ghost watching us dance. It would happen at all times of the day. His class was at 10 o'clock, and then in the evening, we would see the shadows at any time of day. Yes, other people saw the ghost, the shadows, the spirits. George's class was very small and select. Sometimes it was only 2 or 3 of us. In the evening, the classes were crowded, so perhaps 10 or 12 dancers. When we had our parties in the upstairs studio, there were as many as 20 people. Not everyone had the ability to see the shadows or the spirits, but everyone could feel some strange change in the gravity and the temperature of the room. When did this start for me? On my 4th birthday, I had the first flashback from a past life. I would remember many places and people. I had just assumed it was something that happened when I was younger. I started to see faces and people that other people could not see. I did not know they were spirits. Very often with children, they can see spirits until they're told not to.
Many of us can reach back to our experiences around a campfire, telling ghost stories and tales of the macabre, to both frighten and delight those listeners. It's not a far stretch to believe that in prehistoric times, these same type of stories were told.
As far as my recommendation goes, I would say we definitely have some safety and security protocols in place. The majority of our investigating, we go in as a group.
Malevolent spirits and whatnot, people can certainly talk about that, but the one thing I also try to emphasize is physical safety, which, if that's okay, I'd like to put that out there. In terms of physical safety, anyone going to older buildings, always just be aware of what buildings you're in, structural integrity, and also older buildings, they contain asbestos. And people think, oh, asbestos, that's not an issue. Well, unfortunately, a lot of older buildings, especially if a building is past a certain age or is condemned or whatnot, and the remediation hasn't been done, asbestos can be present, dust can be present, black mold can be present. In addition to that, there's always a chance that you have older stairs. And of course, just walking around in the dark at night, can trip over a tombstone or something if you're not watching your step, or fall in a hole, or, I've run into a tree before. But in terms of malevolent spirits, I would say personally, I have not had much experience with malevolent spirits on our journeys, but I would say that it's always good to verbally put out there, you're not coming home with me. You're not going to be following me back, because it is possible to get an attachment. And it's one of those things that you have to verbally express. You belong here. This is where you are. And the way I like to describe it, it's the equivalent of, let's say you're standing around a campfire, and you may not look like you have anything on you, but you smell your clothes like, oh, I've got smoke on me. Same principle. So you just have to take those steps to say, you know what, you're not coming back, you're staying here. And the thing is also being respectful. Regardless of any type of spirit, if anyone has something they don't understand, they can immediately write it off as being malevolent. But just like the same situation, you may have people that you don't get along with that may actually turn out being nice people in real life. So my personal philosophy is you have to treat it with respect, you have to treat it with humility, and you have to treat it like you're in someone else's house. And they may not necessarily know that you're there, but you have to have that level of respect. So, at least in terms of my personal philosophy, that's why I do it.
In Mexican culture, ghosts are often seen as spirits of the deceased who can return to the earthly realm, with a common belief that they might visit loved ones on special occasion, on the Day of the Dead, Dios Muerte, and are generally regarded with a mix of respect and caution. People may try to appease these spirits by leaving offerings on altars or avoiding disturbing their resting place. Dia de Muertos. La Llorona is the most well-known ghost figure, a weeping woman who drowned her children and now wanders searching for them, often used as a cautionary tale to misbehaving children. The Japanese refer to ghosts as yuri, the most common term for ghosts in Japan, signifying spirits of the dead. spirits of the deceased who can be either benevolent or malevolent, depending on how they died. Speaking of death in general, is avoided in Japan, except during special occasions during which ancestors are honored.
I can specifically remember when she was asking the owner of the business who was around the area, and were they male or female, and what was their purpose. And I can specifically recall her being able to envision that and identify that these individuals were females, and that they were around the time of the Revolutionary War. And throughout that investigation, I could just see when she was walking around the business and the property, I could tell just by looking at her and seeing her thinking about what was going on around this, that she had a ability that no other member had. And I believe that to be legitimate. I feel that having her as a member of our group has benefited us in tremendous ways.
Edgar Allan Poe has to his credit at least 22 stories about haunted houses and ghosts. These ghosts departed the earth under circumstances of violence and despair.
I remember one day with my father and my godfather on the St. Lawrence River. They had stopped the car at an empty house that had belonged to a friend of my godfather's. My godfather was telling my father how they had left the house after their daughter had drowned in the river. I was quite surprised they thought this. I could see the girl slightly older than I was looking out of the window at us, looking at me and looking at them. I did not understand why my father and godfather could not see her looking at us. That was one of many events I had as a child. Some of the indicators of a spirit visiting are lovely fragrances, floral, roses, the smell of tobacco, a beautiful, rich, old-fashioned tobacco. I felt touches on my skin like velvet, a soft hand touching my hair. There's often a change of temperature. Most of my experiences with spirits have been positive and encouraging, but there have been quite a few negative and rather frightening experiences. There are times where I feel the ghost presence does not even know we are here. It's as if they are functioning on their own wavelength or channel. And there have been a few experiences where I feel challenged by a spirit, as if they think I'm invading or trespassing. And there have been also times of what I call riffraff ghosts, just irritating me, doing odd things, throwing forks, turning off the garden hose. When workmen arrived to renovate my grandmother's house, the workmen would find their tools placed in different locations. When the workmen put their tools on the dining room table, the spirit would push the dining room table across the room. Very often, spirits don't like changes in their residence. They prefer it to remain as it always was. This particular home was in Montreal. The small house from 1910 with a lovely garden and tall trees, surrounded by modern apartment buildings. I felt that spirits who were just drifting past found it a very nice, cozy place to be away from modern life. All the trees and the flowers, I feel the ghosts felt it was a cozy, nice place to rest and rejuvenate themselves. It was my impression the resident ghosts in the house were my family, who did not want changes, who wanted their life to remain as it was. Very often, there were what I would call riff-raff ghosts that would just stop in like a free hotel and cause trouble. There are other ways in which the spirits have tried to communicate with me. Very often, I would feel a spirit's presence by their touch, a hand on my shoulder or on my hair. Sometimes the spirits wish to convey a message to you. It must be very frustrating for them when we don't understand. Often a telepathic vision is sent, or a voice, sometimes in English, sometimes in a different language that at the moment I do understand. I've had warnings from ghosts, warnings about other people. Sometimes it's just a message of encouragement or an absolute direction, as in turn left right now when I'm driving. There have been times where a spirit not from my family conveyed a message regarding their own family. And when I delivered the message, I was met with quite a bit of hostility, as if it was not my place. There have been times where a completely unfamiliar spirit will approach me to convey a message and repeat it. And when I don't convey it, there's a sad sense, almost like a void or a vacuum, that I didn't complete the mission.
It was in midday, and we were going to a bookstore in upstate New York in a very populated area. This wasn't like out in the middle of nowhere. And we love to go here and we'd, read books and look at books and decide what we want to take home and look at magazines and have a cup of coffee. And I left him in one section. I said, I'm just going to go over and sit in the magazines for a little while and take a look at, decorating or renovation magazines. Women, we love that stuff. And there I was. I was heading towards that area, and all of a sudden, it was like magnet or lightning strike. I'm not sure how to describe it, but I was heading in one direction, and I was actually pulled to turn to another direction. And I looked straight ahead, and kneeling down, going through some of the bookshelves, was this person. I don't know if I want to call it a person, or they were in a person form, but they had, kind of like a, I'm trying to think of exactly how to put this. They had like an aura around them that was very foggy, and it's like when their arm moved, this thing followed them. The aura kind of followed after their arm moved. And I was standing there staring, and all of a sudden, it's like they went to grab for a book, and they turned around and looked at me and stood up and realized that I saw something more than just a person in a black jacket with jeans on, and they took off like running through the bookstore out the front door. And the only thing I can explain or how I can describe it, and I don't want to say it was a demon, that sounds a little extreme, but it was a very negative energy attached to this person. And it was one of those energies that you couldn't have gotten by it, because you saw it was right there. Although other people were walking around and past them like they did not see what was going on. And I don't know why I was told to look at it, but it was like I was standing there and I looked at my husband and I went back and got him. I said, we need to leave now. We'll come back on another day, but we need to leave now. And he said, why? I said, because there was something that wasn't quite human, but they know that I saw them and they left, but I'm afraid they're going to come back. I said, we need to go. And we did. We actually left. We grabbed our coffees and left. But it was in a human form, but it wasn't a human. I don't know how to explain that.
Many biblical scholars agree that ghosts are manifestations of demons or fallen angels who rebelled against God and are evil, deceptive, and destructive. They refer to them as familiar spirits. The general consensus is that these spirits should be avoided at all costs.
I mean, my brother, the day my brother died, and his favorite butterfly was the swallowtail, the tiger swallowtail butterfly. I had a profusion of them coming out of the trees here. I stepped outside and it was like I had 100, and it was, you know, it's August in the South, you know, and I had all these beautiful swallowtail, tiger swallowtail butterflies coming out of the trees. And I think that was just kind of like I'm okay. I'm not here anymore, but I'm okay. And I think a lot of people have those experiences too. Like I said, I think these experiences are a lot more common than people actually will admit or that people will talk about. Because for a while you're like, oh gosh, there's something wrong. I remember going to my doctor after one experience. Well, I went after the one that happened that I told you about, the frightened thing. And I was like, do I have a brain tumor or something? You know, I wanted to know, you know, because I was like, this just doesn't make any sense to me, even after talking to a person who was, you know, very spiritual or very much in the know about spirits, etc. It still didn't make sense to me. I was like, there must be something wrong. There had to be something. No, they did CAT scan and everything, and I was fine.
Further study of a 12,000-year-old Neolithic site in Turkey, referred to as Göbekli Tepe, is producing new evidence of ancient cultures and a direct indication of ancient beliefs and spiritual practices, including warnings of a future apocalypse. Time and study will reveal these now unearthed mysteries and perhaps their connection to the spiritual and paranormal world. Biblical scholars point to the story of Saul employing the witch of Endor to contact the prophet Samuel as a lesson in staying away from these familiar spirits. The conjured spirit prophesies only death for Saul and his group. Our culture and experiences guide the world we live in. Some of those experiences defy a common understanding and belief. As we move within the realm of science, our views and experiences are being pushed to new and sometimes uncomfortable boundaries. Science is adding new fields of exploration even as you watch this production. New theories of the general laws of the universe are changing. New fields of physics like string theory, particle physics, and quantum computing find themselves more allied to spiritual beliefs and those more closely reserved to stories from science fiction. The fundamental question we are left with is, what is real? What is imagined? And what is still unexplained? We as humans will see all events through the lens and filter of our particular beliefs and views of the world we live in. In the end, we may well be left with more questions than answers about ghosts and poltergeists and the secrets from the other side.
What I've learned from these mystical experiences is that life and love are eternal.